Okay, let's unpack this. We're talking about a tradition that is thousands of years old. If you look back, eye cosmetics are ancient, dating all the way to archaeological finds in ancient Egypt. They were used to enhance appearance, sure, but also to convey social identity, this tradition. It's powerful, and it's still a core form of self-expression for so many people today.
It absolutely is. But the focus of our deep dive today is the modern reality. Those aesthetic benefits, that effort to enhance your appearance, it comes with a very real, scientifically documented stack of potential health risks. And, well, they're often completely overlooked.
And that is the mission today. Our source material is a serious piece of modern cosmetovigilance. That's the systematic monitoring of cosmetic-related adverse events. This study is a deep cross-sectional analysis published in 2025 involving 1,741 Jordanian women. We are going to stop treating these eye makeup adverse reactions, or ARs, as just some minor, fleeting irritation. We need to pull out the crucial insights here to understand the true scale of the problem, who is most at risk, and, maybe most surprisingly, which common habits might be making things worse.
And the data, well, it immediately makes it clear this isn't some niche problem. The top-line finding is startling. 85% of eye makeup users reported experiencing at least one adverse reaction.
85%?
85. When you see a prevalence rate that high, that's nearly 9 out of 10 people having some kind of self-reported issue. It transforms this from a minor beauty inconvenience into a significant public health issue.
That figure is it's absolutely staggering. We are talking about nearly 9 out of 10 people having an issue they can point to, whether that's dry eye or a burning sensation. So let's start painting a picture of who these users are, because the demographics, they're really revealing, aren't they?
They really are. If we contrast the makeup users with the non-users in the study, you see a clear age divide. Users were significantly younger, with a mean age of around 29.8 years. Compare that to non-users at 36.8 years. It just confirms that, consistent eye makeup use is largely a practice of younger people.
Right, and it's not just age. The study outlines a very specific user profile. They were more likely to be single, highly educated, 74% were university educated, and employed in professional roles like office work or even in health-related fields.
And here's where it gets fascinating. It's the health profile of this group. While users reported a lower prevalence of chronic eye diseases, they reported a higher rate of pre-existing sensitivities and related health issues compared to non-users. So this sets up a critical biological risk factor right from the start.
Okay, so give us those sensitivity stats. What were users bringing to the table before they even touched an eyeliner pencil?
They reported higher rates of contact lens use at 14.1%. They also had higher rates of smoking, that's 26.6%, and this is critical, higher rates of confirmed food or drug allergies. That one was sitting at 17.8%.
Oh.
So if you connect this to the bigger picture, these highly educated younger women are the ones using the most product, but they also have these pre-existing sensitivities. It inherently predisposes them to cosmetic-related reactions. They're already, biologically more reactive than the general population.
That makes perfect sense. So it suggests the makeup isn't just causing a problem in a vacuum. It's interacting with an already sensitive system, or maybe an immune system that's already primed to react. Okay, so it's clear a large group of users is already biologically susceptible. But what about their routines? Did the study find that their habits might be pushing them over the edge?
The habits show dedication, but not necessarily safety awareness. The usage is intense. The average duration of use was 10.1 years, and they typically start around age 20. And most, about 61.2% of them, applied makeup frequently, at least 3 times a week.
And when they went to buy these products, health wasn't really top of mind. The study said the most important factors were brand at 43.6% and color at 41.38%. Price was a distant concern. So it's all about the look and brand loyalty, not ingredient safety.
It creates this fascinating disconnect. And the data on their actual safety practices is, well, frankly, it's alarming. This is the hygiene gap laid bare. A staggering 75% did not read ingredient labels before buying.
75%?
And nearly 4 out of 5 users, 79.8%, never performed a skin patch test before using a new product.
So you're saying 4 out of 5 users are just guessing whether a new product has something they might be allergic to, which, as we just established, many of them are already prone to.
Exactly. And the problem extends to cross-contamination risk. Sharing products was incredibly common. 59.8% admitted to doing it, often with family members.
Wow.
You're talking about almost 60% of users swapping their tear film microbiome and bacteria with friends or family. That's a powerful image of transmission risk that I think a lot of us just don't consider.
And the product lifespan, It's clearly dictated by budget, not safety protocols.
That's right. The number one reason for throwing a product out was product empty at 54.6%. Only 19.1% checked expiration dates regularly. And if you think about it, eye makeup, especially mascara and liquid liners, is a known breeding ground for bacteria after just a few months. This is a recipe for chronic inflammation.
The study then brought in this really useful tool, a composite malpractice score, to kind of group all these bad habits together. And the findings from that score were, well, they were really counterintuitive.
They really were. Younger age groups, those with a longer duration of use, being married, and having a higher education level, they were all associated with poorer safety practices.
See, that's the one that gets me. You would naturally expect a university education to correlate with better habits, with higher risk awareness. Does the study suggest why that is? Are they just prioritizing convenience, or is something else going on?
Well, the implication is that for these groups, especially the young and highly educated, cosmetics are so normalized, so ubiquitous in their daily lives that they neglect the basics. They see checking ingredients or doing a patch test as an unnecessary hassle, something only a professional might do. It's a normalization of risk.
And yet, within that same model, there was one group that bucked the trend and actually showed better hygiene.
A clear contrast, yeah. Frequent users, that 61% applying makeup 3 or more times a week, they had significantly lower malpractice scores. This suggests that the people who use makeup the most, the really experienced users, maybe they develop better hygiene awareness over time, possibly by learning from early bad reactions. They learn from experience, while the occasional user or the beginner is still in the dark, practicing riskier behavior.
Let's shift now to the symptoms themselves. When these 85% of users reported a reaction, what were the most common signs of ocular distress they were actually feeling?
The most frequently reported symptom, affecting almost 60% of users, was lacrimation. That's excessive tearing. After that, 47.5% reported a dry or foreign body sensation, that dry, scratchy feeling. It's a classic indicator that your tear film is unstable.
That dry, gritty feeling. It's the exact opposite of what you'd want from something designed to enhance the eye area. What's the physical mechanism there? What's actually happening?
The source explains it really vividly. The problem is particle migration. Cosmetic particles, especially from things like pencil eyeliner applied right on the inner waterline, can actually move into the tear film. Once they're there, they start to interfere with the meibomian glands. Those are the crucial glands that produce the oils for the outer layer of your tear film, the layer that stops it from evaporating too quickly. That interference leads directly to dry eye and inflammation.
So it's not just a surface irritation. It's fundamentally messing with the eye's natural lubrication system. And what about physical effects, like on the lashes themselves?
Eyelash loss, which is clinically known as matarosis, was reported by 43.7% of users.
That's nearly half the users who had a reaction.
Nearly half. Other common symptoms, which really stem from hypersensitivity, included a burning sensation in 39.4% of users and itching in 38.4%. Conjunctival redness affected about 36.2%. Those are all hallmarks of your body reacting to common ingredients like preservatives, dyes, and fragrances in the products.
These subjective discomforts are incredibly high, but we need to know if this leads to more severe clinical injuries. Did the study track serious physical complications?
It did. The most severe complication reported was a corneal abrasion. That's damage to the clear outer surface of the eye. This was reported by 6.2% of users. And while that might sound infrequent, that's a clinically serious outcome. It can lead to scarring, permanent visual impairment if it's not treated right away. On top of that, 25% of users reported blurred vision, which suggests a significant, even if temporary, disturbance to their sight.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. We need to move from the symptoms to the statistical predictors of risk. The analysis used a multivariable logistic regression to isolate the highest risk factors, and some of these findings really defied my initial expectations.
The highest risk factors were, well, not surprisingly, pre-existing medical conditions. The analysis confirmed that if you are already prone to reactions, you are at a massively elevated risk.
And what was the #1 risk factor?
A history of allergic eye disease. The risk was incredibly high. It showed an adjusted odds ratio and an AOR of 4.401.
Okay, for our listeners, what does an AOR of 4.4 really mean in simple terms? Is that 4 times the probability?
Exactly. It means that after you control for all the other variables like age and how long they've used makeup, someone with a history of allergic eye disease was over 4 times more likely to have an adverse reaction compared to someone without that history. A history of general food or drug allergy was the next big risk factor, with an AOR of 1.602. It just reinforces that if you're an allergy sufferer, you need to be extremely vigilant.
So if you know you have allergies, you have to treat your eye area with hypervigilance. What about usage habits? What behaviors increase the risk?
Using tester products before buying. That one significantly increased the risk with an AOR of 1.77, and that's a critical public health warning right there. It strongly suggests that these communal products get contaminated with microbes, and that contamination is then transferred directly to the user's eye, so, avoid the communal testers.
Now, we have to talk about the inverse relationships the study found because they really complicate the picture. For example, the risk of a reaction actually decreased the longer someone had been using cosmetics.
That's a true inverse relationship. And it seems to go against the earlier finding that longer use sometimes predicted poorer hygiene habits. So how do you square that? Are they just getting better at picking products, or are they adapting to being uncomfortable all the time?
That is the central question, isn't it? It suggests that years of exposure lead to fewer reported problems.
The paper hypothesizes three main reasons for this, and they're not mutually exclusive. First, experienced users might develop a form of ocular tolerance, a real physical acclimation. Second, and this is probably the strongest driver, they've learned through trial and error. They know which brands or products to avoid. Third, and this is maybe the most worrying, they may have simply normalized the discomfort over decades. They've just adapted, and now they underreport low-level inflammation.
That last point is crucial. They've just learned to live with a baseline level of irritation. Okay, now for the truly unexpected finding. The one that completely flips conventional wisdom about hygiene on its head.
The biggest surprise from the regression model was about removal practices. Consistently removing eye makeup before sleep was associated with a significantly higher risk of adverse reactions. The AOR was a massive 4.718.
An almost five-fold increase in risk for being meticulous about removal before bed. That seems completely backward. We've been told our whole lives that removal is mandatory for eye health.
And it raises a huge question. Why would a seemingly good hygiene practice increase risks so dramatically? The studies suggest two possibilities. Scenario one, this finding might just reflect that people who already feel irritation, well, they're the ones who are most vigilant about removal. They have to remove it all the time because it's bothering them.
So the removal is a reaction to the problem, not the cause of it. The symptom drives the behavior.
Precisely. But scenario two suggests that the act of removal itself is the problem. They might be using aggressive cleansers or abrasive techniques like rubbing too hard or using harsh soaps that can cause chemical irritation or physical abrasion to the delicate skin and the ocular surface. It's the same kind of trauma that leads to eyelid redness, which 15.7% of users reported.
So the message isn't stop removing your makeup, but it's more like be extremely cautious about how you remove it and what you use. The removal process can be just as damaging as leaving the makeup on.
Absolutely. The methods matter. A huge chunk of users, 35.5%, relied on micellar water and 22% used soap and water. Those agents, or just the physical effort they require, can strip the skin's barrier and mess with that tear film stability we talked about. The intention is good, but the execution causes trauma.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener, standing in the makeup aisle or staring at your reflection at night? What are the real actionable takeaways here?
It means we have a clear, urgent need for public health education. We have scientific proof of a high rate of adverse reactions, but incredibly low rates of people checking labels or doing simple patch tests. And if you have pre-existing allergies, you need to understand you are in the highest risk category.
So to summarize the key takeaways. First, pre-existing allergies are your #1 risk factor. Second, high-risk behaviors like sharing products and using those communal store testers are statistically shown to cause problems. And finally, the removal process needs just as much care as the application. Gentle, non-abrasive techniques and mild products are absolutely non-negotiable.
And we should leave you with one final provocative thought that came out of the study. Even though the participants reported massive amounts of subjective discomfort, all that tearing, burning, and dry eye, the study found no significant difference in objective ocular surface disease index, or OSDI scores, between the users and non-users.
That is truly fascinating. So the subjective feeling of suffering doesn't actually match the objective clinical measurement?
It highlights this really complex interplay between subjective discomfort and objective disease markers. So the question for you to mull over is this. If you use cosmetics and you experience frequent discomfort, how much of your eye health is being influenced by subtle subclinical inflammation that you've simply normalized or adapted to over time? When does just a little burning become a chronic problem you've learned to ignore?